I died because of him. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back 2 years before the betrayal, before the crash, before the child I never got to hold. This time I won't beg. I won't cry. And I won't forgive. Because in this life, I didn't come back to love him. I came back to destroy him. I'll be returning to Jingzhou in a week to reunite with you. On the other end of the line, Mario's voice trembled with emotion. That's wonderful. You said you still have matters to settle your mother, and I respect your decision. My sweet girl, we've waited over 20 years for this moment. After hanging up, she stared blankly at the DNA report in her hands. Everything felt like a dream. Becoming the daughter of a billionaire overnight? Unreal. Getting a second chance at life to change a tragic ending? Even more so. The police had called her repeatedly before she was finally able to leave the station. Mario was still abroad and couldn't return immediately, which worked in her favor. She needed time to process the shock. On the way home, her phone kept buzzing nonstop inside her purse. When she finally checked it, Luis's name was flashing on the screen. He had called 10 times in a row. With a deep breath, she answered. Selena, are you deaf? Blind? How dare you take so long to answer me? His voice, filled with rage, made her wince. She couldn't even remember the last time Luis had spoken to her without yelling. She didn't respond, and he didn't rush to speak again. Then, a girl's soft, childlike voice could be heard beside him. Lily. Luis, don't forget the plan, she whispered, followed by a giggle. She couldn't contain her excitement, knowing Selena was about to be humiliated. Luis cleared his throat and suddenly changed his tone. Come to the west side of the city. I'm injured.
Seriously. Badly.
Then he hung up. She stared at the screen, her mind reeling back to that same day in her past life, April Fool's Day. Back then, she had been shaken by the news the police had just delivered when she got the call from Luis, claiming he'd had a serious accident on the west side. Without thinking, she jumped in her car and rushed to find him. But she never made it. A truck slammed into her. Her car was totaled. Her spine, arms, and legs crushed beyond recognition. The pain was blinding, every breath agony. As her consciousness faded, she saw the phone screen blinking on the dashboard, Luis's name glowing. She used her last ounce of strength to answer, only to hear Luis's mocking voice. Happy April Fool's Day, Selena. Lily was right, you really are a gullible idiot. The west side's closed for construction, so enjoy getting lost in the middle of nowhere. Then Lily took the phone, laughing.
Oops. Sorry. But you made me mad the last time.
Maybe if you beg on your knees, I'll consider rescuing you, ha ha ha. Their laughter rang through the phone as she lay dying, alone in the wreckage. Now, in this new life, she had no illusions left about Luis. At the stroke of midnight, Luis stormed into the house, seething with fury. She had just booked her flight to Jingzhou for the following week. Sitting calmly in the living room, she looked up as he charged toward her like a beast, grabbing her neck with both hands. Selena, are you tired of living? He roared. How dare you defy me? His fingers tightened around her throat. She struggled, but the strength difference between a man and a woman made her attempts look almost pathetic. Seeing her struggle only made Luis grin. Getting bolder, aren't you? He hissed. Lily even asked if we're going too far. But now I see, you deserve every bit of it. She gasped for air, her lungs burning. Just as she was about to black out, her eyes fell on the ashtray on the table. With all the strength she had left, she grabbed it and smashed it against his head. Bright red blood trickled down his forehead. Luis screamed in pain and shoved her away, clutching his head, shocked to see his own blood. She collapsed onto the couch, coughing violently, her breath coming back in short, painful bursts. The image of Luis choking her contrasted sharply with the young man who once promised eternal love, who once swore he'd never let a single tear fall from her eyes. Back then, she had worked herself to exhaustion just to support him, juggling 4 jobs, sleeping barely 3 hours a night, destroying her health, her spirit. All for what? To raise a monster with no heart. She still remembered the agony of the accident from her past life. But what hurt more was how coldly Luis had left her behind. Selena. Luis's furious roar snapped her back. He was holding his bleeding head, glaring at her like he wanted to tear her apart. She stared back and laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh that echoed through the room. Luis's expression twisted in confusion. Are you insane? Do you even realize what you've done? She wiped away a tear of laughter and looked him straight in the eyes. Luis, what I did to you just now? It doesn't even come close to 1,000th of what you've done to me. What's wrong? You can't handle a little pain? For years, she had endured humiliation after humiliation, all for love, all for pride. Until she lost herself. Until she lost her life. This new version of her was someone Luis had never seen. He sneered. The one who couldn't handle anything was you, Selena. Let me warn you, if you don't behave, I'll throw you away like trash without a second thought. And then what? You'll be a pathetic, infertile orphan so miserable not even a beggar would want you. He stepped closer, gripping her chin harshly, forcing her to look up at him. His voice turned cruel and icy. You should be grateful. I still remember everything you gave up for me. If Lily didn't refuse marriage, I would have tossed you out a long time ago. She stared him dead in the eyes and let out a bitter laugh. You don't need to throw me out, Luis. I'm leaving on my own. I want a divorce. The air around them turned to ice. In that instant, she could feel the precise moment those words registered. His fingers, still gripping her chin, clenched tighter, digging into her skin like a vice. For a long, tense moment, he said nothing. His eyes narrowed, studying her face, searching for some trace of anger, rebellion, anything he could fight back against. But there was nothing. Nothing for him to hold onto anymore. Luis finally gave a cold, humorless chuckle and let go, stepping back. His smile twisted into something darker, something cruel. Selena, he said slowly, between us, I'm the one who decides when it's over. He tilted his head, the arrogance in his voice like venom. After everything you've done for me, almost giving up your life, I don't believe you have the guts to walk away. Admit it. You love me in that pathetic, hopeless kind of way. You always have. He waved a dismissive hand. I'll take what you just said as an attempt to get my attention. But don't say it again. Ever. With that, he turned and walked away without a glance back. She watched him leave. And to her own surprise, she felt nothing. No hatred. No sadness. No grief. That's how it is, she thought. When love is uprooted completely, nothing remains. Nothing he said or did could touch her anymore. She stood, walked calmly to the bedroom, and pulled out a suitcase. She started packing. Even after taking everything she could, she barely filled 2 half-empty suitcases. 10 years. 10 whole years of her life with Luis. And now, on the day of their separation, everything she had left fit into a pair of bags that couldn't even zip shut from emptiness. Pathetic. Just like their so-called love. Her gaze fell to the simple silver ring on her left hand, the same one Luis had given her when he proposed. She remembered how he had secretly worked several jobs, saving every cent for months, to buy that 10,000 yuan ring. How he knelt in front of her, eyes brimming with tears, hands trembling. Selena, you're the angel who saved my life. From now on, I want to spend every day with you. No matter what happens, I'll never let go. I have nothing now, but when I succeed, I'll give you the world. And she had believed him. She truly believed he meant every word. And maybe he did. But promises are like sand, you loosen your grip just a little, and they slip away completely. She took a deep breath and slid the ring off her finger. The mark it left behind was deep, almost scarred. But it didn't matter. Once removed, even scars fade with time. Just like the story between them, it would soon become just another memory. Without hesitation, she tossed the ring into the trash. Then, with the same steady calm, she dialed her lawyer. Draft the divorce papers, she said coldly. Have them delivered to my house tomorrow. 3 days before her flight, everything she needed was packed. Luis hadn't returned once. But from Lily's social media posts, Selena knew exactly what he'd been up to. He took Lily abroad to a concert, cooked her romantic dinners, even washed her underwear gently, lovingly. Watching him dote on her so tenderly made memories resurface. Memories of her own 6 years of miscarriage after miscarriage. Of lying weak in bed, barely able to move. And Luis pointing at her, shouting, useless. You can't even hold a baby inside you. No wonder you're an orphan. You're cursed to die alone with no family. If it weren't for the guilt I owe you, I would have thrown you away 1,000 times by now. I must have been blind to have loved someone like you. The people who know you best are always the ones who know how to hurt you worst. She took the divorce papers and headed to Luis's company. As soon as she stepped inside, a security guard blocked her path. His eyes were full of contempt. Miss, the boss said you're not allowed upstairs without his permission. You'd better leave. Luis had built his fortune with his first company, but success had made him arrogant. His first affair had been with his secretary. Selena still remembered the day she showed up at the office in tears, begging for an explanation only to be banned from ever setting foot in the building again. The memory flashed across her mind, but her heart stayed cold. She glanced at the guard, then walked past him like he didn't exist. She stepped into the elevator and rode up. When the doors opened, she marched toward his office without hesitation. His assistant rushed up in a panic. Miss, what are you doing? Luis is in a meeting. She didn't stop. With one push, she threw open the office doors. A sharp shriek followed the loud bang. There, in the middle of the room, Lily sat straddling Luis. Both of them half-dressed. It wasn't hard to guess what they'd been doing. Selena froze for a second, then calmly walked in. Luis's face twisted in fury. Selena, what the hell are you doing here? He scrambled for a jacket to cover Lily. Lily smirked, fixing her disheveled clothes, then strutted toward Selena with smug confidence. She looked her up and down, tossed the jacket to the floor, and puffed her chest arrogantly. No wonder Luis says you disgust him. Look at you. Even my maid dresses better than this. Her voice dripped with mockery as she leaned closer. Luis likes women like me, not pathetic housewives like you. If I were you, slap. Before she could finish, Selena's hand struck her across the face. Lily gasped, clutching her cheek, eyes wide with disbelief. You dared to hit me? Selena smiled coldly. Do I need permission to slap trash? You talk like Luis loves you. Please. You're not the first. You won't be the last. I mean it. You and him are perfect for each other. Trash belongs with trash. I hope you two rot together, far away from everyone else. Lily stood trembling with rage, speechless. Luis lunged to her, wrapped her in his arms, then turned and shoved Selena with force. She stumbled, hit the floor hard, but instead of yelling, she took a breath, suppressing every urge to scream. This wasn't about pain or pride anymore. It was about closure. Reaching into her bag, she pulled out the falsified contract. The CEO of Renhau Real Estate came looking for your signature. Since you banned me from entering this building, I figured I'd deliver it personally. Luis hesitated for a split second, then ripped the papers from her hands, scribbled his name on the last page without reading a single word, and flung the documents back at her face. What are you waiting for? Get out. She gathered the scattered pages, stood up with composure, and left without a backward glance. Behind her, Luis didn't even watch her go, was too busy comforting Lily, who sobbed as if the world had ended. On the day she left, for the first time in years, she bought herself a beautiful dress, had her hair done, added a touch of makeup. And when she looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. Reborn, radiant, and finally free. 10 years had been lost. But from this moment on, she would live only for herself. Just as she reached the door with her suitcase in hand, she opened it and came face to face with Luis. He had returned to grab some documents. Their eyes met, and for the first time, he was the one at a loss for words. His lips opened, closed, opened again, until finally he frowned. Selena, where are you going dressed like that? She didn't feel like explaining, so she lied casually. A friend from the orphanage is getting married. I'm going to her wedding. Luis clearly didn't buy it. He studied her with suspicion, sensing something off. The real estate boss said he never received the signed contract. Where's the document you gave me the other day? She turned without a word, retrieved a folder from the table, intentionally burying the divorce papers in the stack, and handed it to him. He grabbed it irritably and started to walk out. But after a few steps, he paused, turned back, and scoffed. So you got all dressed up. What for? Trying to get my attention? His eyes were filled with disdain. A duck stays a duck.
Don't fantasize about becoming a swan.
Whether that wedding is real or not, don't play games with me. You'll never escape me. So, don't even try. And with that, he left again, never looking back. And she felt nothing. She picked up her suitcase and walked straight to the airport. After checking in her luggage, she sat at the gate, waiting to board. That's when her phone started ringing Luis. Without hesitation, she declined. He called again, and again, over and over. She refused to answer. Then came the text. Selena, what is this divorce contract? Answer the damn phone. Explain it now, and maybe I'll forgive you. If not, don't bother crawling back. You think your little tricks will shake me? Keep dreaming. The divorce thing gets fake, right? You're just angry, right? Selena, come home. Let's talk. I don't blame you for using this to get my attention. Where are you? I'm coming to get you. Selena, answer me. She stared at the screen, and instead of pain, all she felt was laughter. Even now, he thought she was playing. As if she hadn't already played her last card. Calmly, she pulled the SIM card out of the phone, snapped it in half, and dropped it into the trash. Just as she tossed it, one last message came in. Selena, please don't leave. 2 years passed. Descending a grand staircase in a stunning scarlet dress with an open back, she carried herself like a queen. Mario and Monica rushed to her side. Her mother, radiant with pride, squeezed her hand, her voice soft with emotion. Of course you're beautiful. You're my daughter. Her father chuckled and jumped in. Hey, she's half mine too, you know. Monica gave him a side-eye, unrelenting. Please, if people saw your face next to hers, they'd never believe it. Monica, that hurts. Watching them bicker playfully, Selena smiled and held both their hands. All right. You both get credit. Come on. The naming ceremony is about to start. As they made their way toward the ballroom, she glanced out the car window, watching the city blur past. And for the first time in forever, her heart was full of peace. Life could be so unpredictable. Just 2 years ago, she was a forgotten orphan. And now, she was adored, cherished beyond measure. Today marked the 2nd anniversary of her return and the day her father would officially announce her as heir to the family empire. The sleek black Maybach pulled up to the entrance, and the flash of cameras exploded in every direction. As soon as she stepped out, a sea of lights engulfed her. She smiled gracefully, stepped forward, her red dress shimmering like fire. Good evening, everyone.
I'm Yulia.
Did you hear? One woman whispered. She was kidnapped by a nanny as a child and only found 2 years ago. This is her first public appearance. Yes, Mario kept her hidden. But now that she's the heir, he's finally presenting her to the world. I can't wait to see what a billion-dollar heiress looks like. Standing among the murmurs and cameras, she lifted her champagne glass, letting the golden liquid swirl as she prepared to take the stage. That's when a mocking female voice cut through the crowd behind her. Well, if it isn't little Selena.
She paused, turned,
and saw exactly who she expected, Lily. And when Lily confirmed it was really her, that smirk on her lips twisted into something sharp and bitter. As she walked away, her heels clicking against the garden stones, she didn't flinch. Not when Luis called her name again. Not when she heard his footsteps behind her, faster now, almost desperate. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. That version of her, the girl who once cried for him, begged for his love, forgave betrayal after betrayal, that girl had died long ago. And what stood in her place now was a woman who had survived. A woman who had rebuilt herself from ashes. Inside the banquet hall, the music played on, laughter filled the air, and people toasted to the future of the heiress of the Mario group. When Selena re-entered, Elias was already scanning the crowd. Their eyes met across the room, and the tension that had gripped her shoulders melted at the warmth in his gaze. He stepped forward, reached for her hand, and without saying a word, offered her that familiar calm that only he could give. She nodded, silently thanking him, and together they returned to the heart of the celebration. But the night wasn't done testing her. Just before the closing speech, a waiter discreetly handed her a small envelope. Her name was written in Luis's handwriting. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter: no threats, no accusations, just a few scribbled lines. I'm sorry. I was blind. I see now what I lost, and I will never forgive myself. She folded the note without a word and slipped it into her purse. She wasn't going to let one piece of paper undo the strength she had spent 2 years building. That letter would stay where it belonged in the past. The next morning, headlines exploded across every news outlet in Jingzhou. Mysterious heiress of Mario Group revealed, and she's stunning. Selena, the woman who disappeared, returns as billion-dollar legacy holder. Her phone rang nonstop. Journalists.
Brands.
People from her past. But she answered none of them. Only one message caught her attention. From Elias. Don't let noise distract you. Your value doesn't depend on what they say, it never did. She smiled and replied simply, "Thank you for always reminding me who I am." Days passed. Then weeks. Selena dove into her new responsibilities, studying the business, attending board meetings, standing side by side with her father at press conferences. And in every moment, Elias was there. Never demanding, never pushing. Just present. Protecting. Supporting. Encouraging her to be more than anyone ever expected. Until one rainy afternoon, during a board presentation, he waited outside her office with 2 cups of tea and said, "You've done everything you promised. Now, what do you want, Selena?" For the first time, she didn't have an answer. Not because she didn't know, but because the girl she used to be had always shaped her wants around someone else. Around Luis. Around survival. Around pain. But now what did she want? That night, as she stared out the window of her penthouse, watching the raindrops race down the glass, she realized she wanted peace. Real, quiet, internal peace. And maybe something more. The next morning, she walked into her father's office and said, "Dad, I want to expand our foundation for women who've survived domestic abuse. I want to offer them shelter, legal support, and a second chance like the one I had." Her father looked at her for a long time, eyes filled with pride. "Then let's build it together." The project launched within the month. Selena poured her heart into interviewing survivors, designing safe houses, working with lawyers to draft legislation. And on opening day, as she stood beneath the golden archway of the first shelter, Elias appeared by her side with a small velvet box. "You've saved lives," he whispered. "You've saved yourself. Let me stand with you as you keep saving others." Inside the box was a ring, not flashy, not ostentatious, but warm, elegant, and timeless. Her breath caught. "I know we said it was a joke," he added softly, "but I think we were promised each other long before we ever knew it." Her eyes misted, but her voice was clear. "Elias, yes." The crowd erupted in applause, the moment captured by every camera present. Luis, watching from a screen somewhere far away, smashed his phone in silence. But that no longer mattered. Because in that moment, Selena wasn't his ex-wife, wasn't a discarded lover, wasn't a tragic story. She was a survivor.
A daughter.
A leader. And for the first time in a long, long while, she was truly, deeply loved. He didn't react right away. He stood there, breathless, stunned, eyes locked on hers like he was afraid it was all just a dream he'd wake up from. But when her smile didn't fade, when her hand lingered on his cheek and her eyes held nothing but quiet certainty, something in Elias shifted. He exhaled slowly, as if releasing 2 years of restrained emotion in a single breath, and then he pulled her into his arms, holding her as if the world outside could vanish, and he wouldn't care. "I'm never letting you go," he whispered into her hair, voice low and trembling.
"Not now."
"Not ever." And for once, Selena didn't flinch. She leaned into his embrace, her fingers curling around the edge of his shirt, anchoring herself in the safety of his warmth. The weight of everything she had endured, betrayal, humiliation, survival, suddenly felt lighter. That night, they didn't speak much more. Words weren't needed. The silence between them was full, not empty. Comforting. The next day, the news of the street brawl had already made its rounds. Paparazzi shots of Luis, bruised and disheveled, sprawled on the pavement outside her estate, flooded social media. Headlines screamed scandal. But Selena didn't issue a statement. She didn't explain. She didn't defend. She simply posted one photo, her hand holding Elias's, both wearing matching rings.
No caption.
None needed. The message was clear. Meanwhile, in the quiet aftermath, Luis disappeared. Some said he'd gone abroad to recover. Others claimed he'd been admitted to a private facility for psychological evaluation. Selena didn't care enough to confirm. Her chapter with him was closed, sealed with scars, but no regrets. What came next was something she never expected. One morning, as she reviewed proposals at the foundation, her assistant rushed in holding an envelope marked with a foreign seal. Inside was a letter from the solicitor of the Lin family, one of the most powerful financial dynasties in Southeast Asia. They requested a private audience, citing a matter of blood and legacy. Suspicious but intrigued, Selena agreed to meet. The appointment was arranged discreetly, and she arrived at a secluded estate outside the city, escorted by Elias. The moment they stepped inside, the head of the Lin family, an elderly man with silver hair and piercing gray eyes, stood and bowed respectfully. "Miss Selena," he said solemnly, "we owe you an apology. 27 years ago, a mistake was made. You are not the daughter of Mario." The words hit her like a stone to the chest. She couldn't breathe. "What are you talking about?" she managed. The old man handed over two documents. One was a birth certificate with her real name, Lin Qingxue. The other, a certified paternity test. "You are the biological daughter of my late son. You were switched at birth with another child. We found out only recently. Your parents were victims, too. They raised you out of love, not knowing." Selena's hands trembled as she clutched the papers. Her mind swirled with disbelief. Everything she thought she knew Mario, Monica, the years she had spent healing in their embrace was suddenly in question. But before her thoughts could spiral, Elias stepped forward, grounding her with a gentle hand on her back. "Whatever your blood may say, they're your family. You chose them. They chose you. Nothing changes that." She turned to him, tears pricking her eyes, but nodded. He was right. Family wasn't always written in blood. It was built in moments of love, of sacrifice, of standing by one another when the world collapsed. The Lin family offered her a choice: accept her inheritance and a position on the board of their global empire or walk away. That night, Selena sat alone in the garden, the city lights glowing faintly in the distance. Elias joined her, setting down 2 cups of tea. "You're quiet," he said softly. "I have 1,000 thoughts," she murmured. "But only one heart." He waited. She met his gaze. "I won't abandon the people who saved me. But I want to know who I really am. I want to know where I come from. I want the truth." Elias nodded. "Then I'll go with you. Wherever that truth leads." A single tear rolled down her cheek, not from sorrow, but from the quiet, overwhelming sense that, for the first time in her life, no matter how many truths shattered, she wouldn't have to pick up the pieces alone. She reached for his hand. And together, they stared out into the night, ready for the storm of answers that tomorrow would bring. The day I read the news of Luis's death, I didn't cry. I sat silently by the window of our new home, a cup of untouched tea growing cold in my hands. Outside, the wind moved the trees gently, as if the world hadn't just erased a name from my past forever. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was quiet. A silence so profound it pressed on my chest, not with grief, but with the finality of something that no longer belonged. Luis had taken many things from me: trust, my self-worth, the life I could have had. But he couldn't take this. Not this piece. I hadn't told Elias yet. He arrived home shortly after, the same warm energy lighting his face as always. He walked in, saw my expression, and instantly knelt beside me. "Selena, what's wrong?" I didn't know how to say it, so I handed him the phone. He read the headline, paused for a moment, then placed the phone down, took my hand and whispered, "It's over now." I nodded. "I know." He didn't ask me how I felt. He didn't need to. That night, we didn't talk about Luis.
We didn't talk about the past.
We curled up in bed, my head resting on his chest, and just breathed in the life we had built together. A life of choice, not survival. Weeks passed. We finalized wedding preparations. Everything was nearly perfect. One day, I received a call from my assistant. "Miss Selena, there's a visitor here to see you. She says her name is Clara." The name didn't register at first. Then a memory came rushing back. Clara, Luis's mother. A woman who had once begged me to stay by her son's side, who once swore he'd change. I hadn't seen her in years. Curiosity outweighed caution. I told my assistant to let her in. When she arrived, her face had aged 20 years. Her hair was gray, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked thinner, weaker. She clutched a small box in her hands. "Selena," she said softly. "I won't stay long. I just wanted to give you something." I didn't move. I didn't speak. She opened the box. Inside was a tiny silver pendant, the art-shaped, tarnished with time. "He kept this," she said, "since the first year you two met. Said it reminded him of your smile." My throat tightened, but I didn't take the box. Clara sighed, closed it, and placed it on the table. "I know you don't owe me anything. And after all that's happened, you probably never want to hear his name again. But I'm a mother. And I loved my son. Even when he broke things, even when he ruined the only good thing he had. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know his last words were your name." She stood, bowed, and left without waiting for a reply. I stared at the box for a long time. And then, gently, I slid it into a drawer. That part of me was closed. It didn't need to be opened again. On the day of the wedding, the skies were clear. Not a single cloud, just soft sunshine and laughter echoing through the gardens. Monica and Mario stood beaming with pride. The Lin family, who had gradually opened their arms to me, attended quietly, respectfully. And Elias waited at the altar in a tailored white suit, eyes never leaving me as I walked toward him. There were whispers, of course,
About my past.
about Luis, about secrets. But I had stopped listening long ago. Because today wasn't about what was behind me. It was about the man in front of me. We exchanged vows. He promised to protect my light. I promised to never lose it again. And when he kissed me, the world disappeared. Months later, while sorting documents, I found an envelope tucked behind an old drawer in my office. It wasn't addressed. Inside was a letter. Handwritten, but not by Luis. The penmanship was unfamiliar, elegant, precise. The message was short. Be careful. Not all debts were buried with him. A friend. My fingers froze. I stared at the words, heart pounding. Outside, Elias was laughing with the dogs. The sun was setting. Everything was peaceful. But somewhere shadows still lingered. At first, I wanted to believe it was a prank. A leftover thread from a past that had long since unraveled. But as days passed, more signs followed. Elias began receiving anonymous calls with no one on the other end. Files went missing from the foundation's records, nothing catastrophic, just enough to notice. Then came the accident. Our driver lost control on a mountain road. The brakes had been tampered with. We survived, but barely. That night, Elias held me in the hospital room, his knuckles bruised from punching the wall in frustration. "This isn't random," he said. "Someone's watching us." I nodded slowly. Deep down, I had already known. The letter. The warning. Something or someone was still out there. Not Luis. Not Lily. This was something darker. And more calculated. After we recovered, I quietly hired a private team. Former intelligence officers, cyber investigators, people who owed favors to my family or Elias's. Weeks turned into months, and just when things seemed to calm down again, I received a file on my desk. No name.
No sender.
Inside were photos. Of me. As a child. In places I had never been. With people I didn't recognize. In one photo, a man held me in his arms, smiling at the camera. A man with eyes eerily similar to mine. And on the back of the photo, in neat ink, the truth wasn't just switched at birth. You were hidden. That night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror and realized something chilling. The Lin family wasn't just misinformed. They had been manipulated. Maybe even deceived. The woman I thought I was the orphan, the daughter found again, was only part of the truth. My past had more shadows than I ever imagined. "Elias," I whispered that evening as we sat on the balcony, watching the stars blink awake. "I think someone erased who I really was. And now they want me to stay quiet." He didn't flinch. He reached out, took my hand, and kissed my knuckles softly. "Then we won't stay quiet." He turned to look at me, eyes steady, unwavering. Whatever truth is buried, we'll dig it out. Together. His words became my promise. I wasn't a victim anymore. I wasn't just a survivor either. I was something else now. Stronger. Sharper. I had walked through fire. It was seen this time. I would walk through shadows. Not to escape, but to confront them. In the months that followed, Elias and I began tracing my history beyond the Lin family. A name kept surfacing. One that appeared in old ledgers, confidential adoption records, and offshore accounts. Shen Yu. A name no one seemed to recognize publicly, yet it was everywhere behind the scenes. Linked to shell corporations. Real estate takeovers. And most disturbing of all, my mother's disappearance shortly after I was born. A woman no one ever mentioned. A woman I never knew. We discovered a house in the countryside registered under Shen Yu's alias. Abandoned, but with electricity still running. Inside, a journal sat on a desk. Pages written in a delicate, feminine hand. One entry, dated 1998, said, "If they find her, she will die. If I die, she might live. So I've made my choice." I dropped the book, my heart pounding in my ears. "Selena," Elias said carefully, picking up the journal. "Your mother didn't abandon you. She hid you. To protect you." I could barely breathe. Everything I thought I'd finally closed was breaking open again. But this time, I wasn't afraid. This wasn't tragedy anymore. This was truth.
Raw.
Complicated. Maybe dangerous. But it was mine. And I wanted it. All of it. As we drove back into the city, I looked at Elias and said quietly, "There's more, isn't there? Things they never told us. About my family. About the reason they wanted me gone." He didn't respond immediately. Just tightened his grip on the wheel. There always is. I looked out the window. The skyline of Jingzhou glowing ahead like a crown in the dusk. I didn't know where this path would lead. I didn't know what I'd lose or what I'd gain. But for the first time, I was ready to go deeper. To not just heal the past, but uncover it. To not just love the present, but protect it. Because if the past refused to stay buried, I would be the one to bring it into the light. If you love emotional and surprising stories, don't forget to like the video to support the channel and help us spread more heart-touching stories.